The first time she walked onto the military training grounds, a whisper of doubt followed her like a shadow. At barely 5 feet, tall and slender, she looked like a figure carved out of paper compared to the towering recruits surrounding her. Muscles rippled under broad shoulders and determined faces, the kind that had been honed for years in high schools and junior ROTC programs. She, on the other hand, had grown up small, often overlooked, underestimated at every turn. Yet in her chest beat a heart bigger than most, fueled by a quiet determination that had carried her through every challenge life had thrown her way. She felt the eyes on her immediately. Some were curious, some skeptical, and a few openly mocking. "Are you sure she's in the right line?" One recruit whispered to another. "She'd get crushed out there." She ignored them. In these early moments, she had already decided that her strength would not be measured in inches or pounds, but in persistence, in mental fortitude, and in the unwillingness to back down. Her first day was nothing short of grueling. Recruits were lined up in the morning chill, wind whipping across the training grounds, while drill instructors barked orders with voices sharp as bayonets. The sound seemed designed to pierce the very souls of those standing before them, weeding out the weak and the unprepared. When the first obstacle course was laid before them, mud, rope climbs, wall scaling, many looked around at each other nervously. She tightened the straps on her boots, adjusted her gloves, and stepped forward, refusing to even glance at the intimidating walls looming above. The first test came quickly, a wall that seemed impossibly tall for someone her size. The other recruits leapt and swung with practiced strength, hands gripping ropes and edges, bodies flying over the top with relative ease. She hesitated for a heartbeat, feeling the familiar sting of doubt from those around her. But hesitation quickly turned into focus. One foot found a hold, then another. Muscles burned, fingers slipped, and mud coated her clothes, but she refused to fall. Inch by painstaking inch, she pulled herself upward, ignoring the quiet gasps of surprise from those watching. Finally, with a heave of every ounce of strength she possessed, she swung over the top. Silence followed. For a moment, the other recruits simply stared. A few instructors exchanged glances, and the whispers shifted, not of doubt, but of curiosity. She had done the impossible, or at least what most thought impossible. She landed on the ground, panting, mud dripping from her hair, and continued forward without a word. Pride did not need announcement. It radiated from her every movement. The days that followed were no less punishing. The training was relentless. Recruits ran until their lungs burned, lifted until their arms trembled, and pushed until their bodies threatened to collapse. Many faltered. Some quit altogether. She did not. She adapted. Where strength failed her, she learned technique. Where endurance waned, she found rhythm. She became skilled at conserving energy without compromising performance, noticing patterns in drills that others overlooked. Every slip, every stumble, every minor failure became a lesson. And slowly, the whispers around her began to change. It was during marksmanship drills that she truly began to shine. While some recruits relied on sheer force to steady themselves, she learned to steady her mind. Her fingers were small but precise, her grip steady, her aim unerring. The instructors noticed the concentration in her eyes, the way she adjusted for the wind, calculated the distance, and pulled the trigger with a calm, unwavering hand. Each shot was perfect, each result undeniable. For the first time, some of the skeptical voices softened. She wasn't just surviving. She was excelling in ways that raw physicality alone could not match. Despite her growing competence, challenges came from all directions. Some recruits never stopped doubting her, teasing her mercilessly about her size, her endurance, and even her ability to handle combat. "Maybe you should stick to office work," one sneered, laughing as she carried her pack across the muddy field. She ignored the mockery, letting their words slide off her like rain. She knew that proving herself would not come through argument, only through action. And so, with each day, she pushed harder, ran faster, and trained longer. Her small stature no longer a weakness, but a badge of resilience. In quieter moments, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Growing up, she had always been the small girl, the one overlooked in every classroom, every team, every group. People often judged her capabilities based on appearances, never imagining that beneath her size was a mind capable of extraordinary focus and a spirit that refused to break. That same tenacity had guided her into this world of military rigor, where every mistake could be punished and every success measured in survival. There were moments of doubt, of course. Nights spent in the barracks were filled with silent questions. Was she strong enough? Fast enough? Clever enough to keep up with those who towered over her? But she refused to allow doubt to win. Each morning, she reminded herself of the stakes, not simply personal pride, but the possibility of saving lives one day. That thought became her driving force, pushing her through exhaustion, pain, and the endless demands of training. By the end of the first month, she had begun to earn the cautious respect of her instructors. They noted her precision, her tenacity, and her uncanny ability to remain composed under stress. Though she was still smaller than most, her performance made it clear that her size was irrelevant. Strength, they realized, came in many forms, and sometimes the quietest, smallest recruit could display a courage that dwarfed even the strongest soldiers. Even among her peers, attitudes began to shift. Those who had mocked her now observed her with cautious admiration. She had become a symbol of resilience, a living proof that determination and skill could overcome the limitations others imposed. Her successes were subtle at first, small victories that often went unnoticed. But cumulatively, they told the story of someone who refused to be defined by external judgments, someone whose determination might one day tip the balance between failure and triumph in ways no one could yet imagine. By the time the first month drew to a close, she had transformed not just herself, but the perception of those around her. The too small recruit was no longer just a figure of curiosity or skepticism. She had proven that heart, focus, and persistence could rival raw power. And while no one could yet predict what lay ahead, it was becoming clear that this unlikely recruit was destined for a path that would challenge every assumption the military and the world had about her capabilities. She stood at the edge of the training field one evening, mud-caked, bruised, and exhausted. Around her, other recruits laughed, shared stories, or collapsed in fatigue. She simply exhaled, letting her eyes wander over the horizon. In her heart, she knew that the real test was not yet behind her. It was still to come. But for the first time, she felt a quiet confidence. She had survived the impossible, and more importantly, she had done so on her own terms. The whispers of doubt were fading. A new story was beginning, one that would not be defined by size, but by courage, skill, and the strength of an indomitable will. The second phase of training was merciless. It was no longer about surviving the initial obstacle courses or proving she could endure the basics. Now, the instructors pushed recruits to their mental and physical limits, testing every skill a soldier would need on the battlefield. For most, it was overwhelming. Many quit, some broke down, and others simply trudged through with nothing but raw determination. But she thrived, not because she was stronger, but because she had learned the art of focus, of turning every challenge into a calculated problem rather than a brute struggle. Endurance runs became the first real battleground for her. While others sprinted in bursts of energy, earning themselves out before the halfway mark, she found a rhythm. Small steps, measured breaths, steady pacing. She visualized the finish line, not as a distant goal, but as a series of small, attainable points along the way. By the time the instructors called the run complete, she had finished not at the very front, but far from the back, while many larger, more confident recruits had collapsed or lagged behind. Some of the sneers that had followed her in the first weeks began to fade, replaced with subtle nods of respect. Strength exercises were the next arena. Lifting heavy packs, navigating monkey bars, and dragging weighted sleds tested raw power. She struggled more here than in endurance. Her small frame made every lift a battle, every pull an uphill fight. But she adapted. Technique became her ally. She learned to use leverage, to position her body in ways that amplified her strength. By the time the week ended, she could lift and maneuver almost as effectively as those twice her size. Her instructors noticed, and quietly, some of the doubts that had lingered in their minds began to erode. It was during marksmanship that her unique abilities truly began to shine. While others relied on brute strength to stabilize heavy rifles, she found balance in stillness. Her eyes focused, her breathing slowed, and each pull of the trigger became a precise exercise in calculation. Distance, wind, angle, all variables she processed effortlessly. While larger recruits struggled with shaking hands and rapid heartbeats, she delivered shot after shot to the target center. Instructors watched, impressed, some shaking their heads in disbelief. Here was a soldier who didn't need muscle to command respect. She needed only patience, focus, and determination. But mental challenges were often the hardest. The instructors deliberately designed exercises that demanded quick thinking under stress. Simulated attacks, confusing signals, and impossible time limits were intended to expose weaknesses. Many recruits panicked, faltered, or froze. She, however, thrived in chaos. Her mind became a calm center in the storm, analyzing each scenario, predicting outcomes, and making decisions that others could not. She began to stand out, not for sheer physical prowess, but for a clarity of thought that was rare even among the strongest recruits. The other recruits could not ignore her anymore. Some tried to sabotage her, leaving equipment in the wrong place or mocking her loudly during drills. She faced it all with quiet composure, refusing to rise to provocation. Her actions, rather than words, became her response. Every time she succeeded in a drill, every time she completed a task the experts said she would fail, the murmur of doubt around her shifted toward admiration. By the time she finished her second week, she was no longer the small girl, but the one who surprises you every time. It was during a particularly grueling endurance obstacle that the real test of her resolve came. The recruits were ordered to complete a simulated urban combat course, walls to scale, tunnels to navigate, and targets to neutralize under strict time constraints. Exhaustion set in quickly. The air was thick with sweat, mud, and the metallic scent of fear. Larger recruits stumbled, exhausted and frustrated. She, too, felt fatigue gnawing at her muscles. Her arms burned, her lungs screamed, and every fiber of her being begged for rest. But she pushed through, compartmentalizing the pain and focusing only on the next movement. Every handhold, every foothold, every breath became a strategy rather than a struggle. By the time she emerged from the final tunnel, her uniform torn and her hands bleeding, she was not the first to finish, but she was among the few who completed the course flawlessly. The instructors nodded in approval. Some recruits, too exhausted to speak, simply stared, realizing they had underestimated her once again. She had done more than survive. She had adapted, strategized, and conquered. That night, in the barracks, whispers spread about the recruit who defied expectations at every turn. Some called it luck. She knew it was preparation, persistence, and patience. In quieter moments, she reflected on her progress. The training was no longer just about proving herself to the instructors or to the other recruits. It was about proving herself to herself. Every obstacle overcome, every drill completed, every target hit was a testament to what she could accomplish despite her size. The small girl who had been overlooked in school, teased on playgrounds, and underestimated her entire life was slowly transforming into a soldier whose potential could not be ignored. One of the most pivotal moments came during a tactical scenario exercise designed to simulate a hostage rescue mission. Teams were divided, and each recruit's role was critical. She was assigned sniper coverage, a role some teammates initially questioned because of her size and perceived inexperience. As the exercise progressed, chaos erupted. The enemy appeared in unexpected positions, alarms sounded, and confusion threatened to derail the mission. She remained calm, scanning, analyzing, and coordinating with her team. From her vantage point, she neutralized simulated threats with precision, guiding her teammates safely through the scenario. By the end, her small stature had become an asset, allowing her to find vantage points others could not. By the conclusion of the second month, she had transformed not only herself, but also the perception of those around her. The whispers of doubt had shifted into admiration, curiosity, and sometimes even awe. She had become the benchmark, the one others measured themselves against. Instructors quietly acknowledged her as exceptional, and even recruits who had once mocked her now sought her advice and observed her techniques closely. Her size no longer defined her. Skill, determination, and mental discipline did. Yet she remained humble. She knew that training was just preparation, that real challenges lay ahead in deployment, in actual combat, where failure could mean death. But the foundation had been laid. She had proven that resilience, intelligence, and precision could overcome physical limitations. She had learned that victory was as much about mindset as it was about strength. And she had discovered, most importantly, that doubt, whether from others or herself, was never stronger than her will to succeed. As she lay in the barracks that night, exhausted but satisfied, she allowed herself a small, quiet smile. She was no longer the recruit everyone whispered about. She had earned her place among the best, and the first real victories had been hers, not in accolades, not in praise, but in proving to herself that limits existed only where she allowed them to. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more obstacles, and more opportunities to prove herself again. And she would face them all with the same calm focus that had carried her this far. For the first time, she felt a growing confidence that she could truly achieve anything she set her mind to. The journey was far from over, but she had already begun rewriting the story of the small girl who refused to be underestimated. In the proving grounds of training, she had found her strength, her purpose, and the knowledge that size had never been the measure of a soldier's heart. After proving herself in the general proving grounds, she faced the next challenge, the sniper track. Unlike other soldiers, this path was less about brute force and more about patience, precision, and mental endurance. Many recruits assumed that someone of her size and quiet demeanor might struggle with the demanding attention to detail and the long hours of solitary focus. But she welcomed it. She had discovered that her greatest strengths lay not in physical dominance, but in the ability to observe, analyze, and remain calm under pressure, a skill no one else in the program had yet mastered. Her first day at sniper school was intimidating. The instructors, veterans with decades of field experience, wasted no time in testing her limits. Long-range rifles, advanced scopes, wind calculations, and camouflaging techniques were introduced almost immediately. The lessons were dense, often overwhelming, designed to filter out anyone not capable of meticulous focus. While others scrambled to keep up, she took a step back, absorbed every word, and began to internalize the complex physics and math required to be effective at extreme distances. Distance, elevation, wind speed, and even humidity were variables she now considered as tools not obstacles. Camouflage exercises became her first proving ground in this specialized field. For hours at a time, she had to remain completely invisible, blending into forests, rocky terrains, and barren deserts. Some of her peers found the stillness maddening, their bodies twitching involuntarily after only a few minutes. She, however, discovered a strange tranquility in it. Every breath was measured. Every slight movement was calculated. She became a part of the environment, almost invisible even to trained observers. Instructors began to note her uncanny ability to remain undetected, even under the closest scrutiny. Her precision drills were equally challenging. At ranges most recruits struggled to reach, she was expected to hit targets consistently. She spent hours analyzing trajectory charts, adjusting for wind drift, and compensating for elevation. One by one, the targets fell. Where others missed, she did not. Even when the conditions worsened, gusting winds, sudden rain, or shifting light, her results remained consistent. Her instructors, initially skeptical, started to whisper among themselves about the recruit who consistently outperformed soldiers with years more experience. She didn't seek attention. She simply focused, letting results speak louder than words. Mental endurance became as crucial as technical skill. The instructors placed her in simulated combat scenarios, where hours stretched into days. Sleep was limited, and decisions carried life or death weight. While some recruits faltered under exhaustion, making mistakes that would be fatal in the field, she relied on a steady routine. Slow breathing, methodical calculation, and mental visualization. She imagined herself in the mission, predicting enemy movements, adjusting shots, and ensuring that each action was deliberate. This mental rehearsal became her secret weapon, turning fatigue into a background hum rather than a barrier. She learned to control fear and adrenaline like a seasoned veteran. During simulated ambush, when alarms rang and bullets struck nearby, most recruits panicked, shaking and fumbling. She, however, slowed her heart rate, focused her mind, and completed her objective with unnerving composure. Even instructors watching from observation posts were impressed by her ability to remain a calm, calculating force amid chaos. It wasn't just skill. It was instinct honed through discipline and relentless practice. Field exercises tested her endurance even further. She had to remain motionless for hours, sometimes days, in extreme temperatures, watching for enemy movement while adjusting for terrain, light, and distance. Her small frame, once thought a liability, became an advantage. She could find tight hiding spots, remain concealed for long stretches, and move silently when repositioning. Each success reinforced her growing confidence and further diminished the skepticism of those around her. Her size no longer mattered. Precision, patience, and mental strength had replaced it as the measures of her ability. Her peers began to rely on her instincts. During training simulations, they sought her advice on positioning, camouflage, and target assessment. Even instructors would occasionally consult her, amazed at her ability to read terrain and anticipate enemy movements. Though she remained quiet and unassuming, her reputation grew steadily. She was no longer the small recruit who might survive by luck. She was a sniper, a strategist, and an indispensable part of the team. Sleep deprivation exercises pushed her to new extremes. Instructors would place her in observation posts overnight, requiring her to monitor multiple targets without rest. Her mind, finely tuned through weeks of training, adapted to the challenge. Fatigue threatened to cloud judgment, but she employed mental techniques learned from meditation and observation. She maintained situational awareness, tracking every movement in her scope and taking notes for later analysis. By dawn, she had compiled detailed reports on target behavior, angles, and vulnerabilities, an achievement that amazed even the senior instructors. Physical conditioning did not stop, even in sniper school. Though less about brute strength, she needed the stamina to carry heavy rifles, climb to elevated positions, and remain agile when needed. Daily endurance runs, weighted carries, and agility drills complemented her technical training. Every evening, her body ached, but she pushed through the pain, knowing that physical endurance and mental precision were inseparable. She began to see that sniper excellence required a balance of mind and body, both honed to perfection. By the middle of the program, she had earned a reputation among instructors and peers alike. Observers noted her uncanny ability to anticipate problems before they arose, her meticulous preparation, and her unwavering calm. While others relied on strength or experience, she relied on preparation, intellect, and patience. Missions simulated in the field frequently highlighted her contributions. She would silently guide teammates, neutralize threats from concealed positions, and make decisions that saved both time and resources. The skeptics were becoming believers. Her greatest challenge, however, came during the final sniper assessment. Recruits were placed in a mountainous terrain, tasked with observing and neutralizing multiple targets over extreme distances with minimal support. Conditions were harsh, temperatures fluctuated, wind gusted unpredictably, and visibility was limited. Most recruits struggled immediately, miscalculating distances or missing targets entirely. She, however, methodically calculated trajectory, adjusted for every environmental factor, and executed flawless shots. She moved silently between positions, always remaining hidden, always aware of every variable. By the end of the assessment, she had not only met but exceeded expectations, completing the course with precision unmatched by any peer. By the conclusion of sniper school, the transformation was complete. She had grown from the underestimated recruit into a disciplined, precise, and mentally formidable sniper. Her size, once a perceived weakness, was now irrelevant. What mattered was her ability to remain calm under pressure, calculate with precision, and act decisively when every second counted. Instructors and peers alike had learned a valuable lesson. True skill is not determined by size, but by focus, discipline, and determination. As she packed her gear at the end of the program, she reflected on the journey. Every drill, every exercise, every challenge had pushed her beyond limits she once believed insurmountable. She had discovered that mental endurance, patience, and relentless practice were far more powerful than raw physical strength. In her hands rested not only a rifle, but the confidence that she could face real combat scenarios and emerge victorious. She had become the soldier she had always aspired to be, a sniper whose skill and discipline would one day be the difference between life and death for those around her. That night, lying under the stars in the training camp, she allowed herself a quiet smile. The battles of training were over, but the real test lay ahead. Yet, she felt ready. She had proven that meticulous preparation, mental discipline, and unwavering focus could overcome any obstacle. She had transformed doubt into respect, skepticism into admiration, and weakness into strength. And she knew, deep in her heart, that her true potential was only beginning to unfold. Deployment day arrived like a storm she had been preparing for her entire life. Months of grueling training, technical mastery, and mental conditioning led her to this moment, her first real mission alongside an elite Navy SEAL unit. She felt a mixture of anticipation and a quiet, simmering tension that only true professionals understand. The SEALs were legendary, veterans hardened by years of combat. And here she was, the small recruit who had earned her place in training, but had yet to face the crucible of the battlefield. When she arrived at the forward operating base, she felt the weight of skeptical eyes. The SEALs were wary. Whispers rippled through the team. "Are you sure she can handle it?" Someone muttered. Others shrugged, silent but unconvinced. She noticed but said nothing. She didn't need to defend herself with words. Her work, as always, would speak for itself. Her rifle was ready, her gear checked meticulously, and her mind focused on the task ahead. Every step, every motion, exuded calm determination, though inside, adrenaline surged. The mission briefing was tense. Intelligence reports had identified a hostile compound deep within enemy territory, and the team's goal was to secure key targets while minimizing exposure. Terrain maps, coordinates, and satellite imagery were spread across the table. Every SEAL studied the maps with laser focus. She memorized every detail, noting possible sniper positions, cover points, and lines of sight. While the team strategized, she quietly calculated angles and potential challenges that no one else had considered. Her insight, unspoken but precise, was already beginning to shape the team's approach. As they loaded onto helicopters under the cover of darkness, the reality of the mission settled in. The roar of the engines and the weight of her pack reminded her that this was no simulation. This was real. Every heartbeat carried the possibility of danger. Every decision could tip the balance between success and disaster. The SEALs, experienced and silent professionals, moved with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. She followed suit, knowing that the margin for error was razor-thin. Landing near the target area, the team dispersed into strategic positions. She was assigned sniper coverage. Her position was elevated, concealed, and critical. Some of the SEALs glanced at her, doubt lingering in their expressions. She ignored it. From her perch, she observed every movement. Enemy patrols, guard rotations, potential ambush points. Her training kicked in. She breathed slowly, adjusted for distance, and scanned methodically, ensuring she would be ready to act the moment the mission required it. The operation began smoothly at first. Teams moved stealthily through the compound perimeter, neutralizing threats as planned. She remained hidden, invisible, and precise. Her presence was quiet but vital, monitoring areas where the enemy could have spotted them first. Every adjustment of her scope, every breath she controlled, contributed to the team's advance. She could feel the tension building, but she remained a steady force, her calmness a stabilizing anchor for the mission. Then, chaos erupted. An unexpected patrol crossed their path, and gunfire erupted. The SEALs were immediately pinned down, caught in a sudden crossfire from multiple enemy positions. Panic could have spread like wildfire, but she remained focused. Her scope became her lifeline. She assessed threats instantly, identifying which targets posed immediate danger and which could be neutralized with precision. One by one, her shots found their marks, suppressing enemy fire and creating breathing room for the SEALs to reposition. The SEALs, initially skeptical, quickly realized the impact of her presence. Her bullets struck with deadly accuracy, taking down critical threats in moments that could have been fatal. She adjusted for wind, distance, and movement without hesitation. Every decision was calculated, and every shot saved lives. The same soldiers who had doubted her capabilities were now relying on her judgment, communicating through radios with urgency and respect. She had become the unseen guardian, the stabilizing force amid chaos. Hours felt like minutes as the firefight intensified. Explosions rocked nearby structures. Shouts and gunfire pierced the night, and the line between success and disaster blurred. She remained in position, completely focused, guiding her teammates, suppressing enemy fire, and maintaining communication. Her small frame and quiet presence allowed her to remain almost undetectable, moving to new vantage points with agility and precision. Each calculated action bought the team critical seconds, preventing what could have been catastrophic losses. At one point, the team's point man was pinned down, exposed to enemy fire. She observed the angle, calculated the distance, and took the shot with calm precision. The threat was neutralized in a heartbeat, and the point man was able to move to safety. The SEAL's eyes widened in awe. This was no longer a rookie proving herself. It was a sniper whose skill could dictate the outcome of a mission. For the first time, their doubts were gone, replaced entirely by reliance and trust. As the operation progressed, she continued to play a critical role. She guided movements, identified hidden threats, and provided coverage that allowed the SEALs to complete objectives efficiently. Even seasoned veterans noted her instincts, precision, and composure under fire. She remained quiet, refusing accolades, but the respect she had earned in training now manifested in trust and dependence. The same team that had questioned her presence now saw her as indispensable, a force whose contributions were central to their survival. By the end of the mission, the compound was secured. The SEALs moved as a unit, exhausted but alive, with critical targets neutralized and objectives achieved. When they regrouped, the atmosphere was tense yet relieved. The team, once skeptical, now regarded her with unspoken admiration. They had witnessed firsthand the skill and discipline she had honed over months of training, and they understood that her presence had been the difference between life and death. Even after the mission concluded, the quiet confidence she exuded remained unchanged. She did not boast or seek recognition. She had fulfilled her role with precision and calm, demonstrating that size was irrelevant when skill, discipline, and mental strength were applied. Her small stature, once seen as a limitation, had become an asset. Agility, concealment, and a focus that larger soldiers might not possess. Her first deployment had cemented her place among the elite, proving that she belonged not because of luck, but because of preparation and relentless dedication. That night, as the team debriefed and checked equipment, she allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. She thought about every training exercise, every drill, every moment of doubt she had faced. Each had led her to this mission, to this success, and to the recognition of her capabilities. She realized that while the mission was over, the journey had only begun. Every decision, every action, every calculation she had made would carry weight in the missions yet to come. The SEALs who had once doubted her now regarded her as a peer, a guardian, and a sniper, capable of altering the outcome of a battle. Their respect was hard-earned, but it was earned nonetheless. She had transcended the labels of too small, an unlikely recruit, to become a soldier whose precision, mental endurance, and calm under fire defined her. In their eyes, she was no longer underestimated. She was a vital part of the team, the unseen force that ensured their survival. As she lay in the temporary camp that night, fatigue creeping into every muscle, she felt a quiet pride. This deployment had tested her beyond imagination, and she had not only survived, but excelled. She had proven that training, discipline, and mental fortitude could overcome any skepticism, any doubt, and any physical limitation. The battlefield had become her proving ground, and she had emerged as the soldier she had always known she could be, a sniper whose skill and courage could save lives when it mattered most. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, she allowed herself a moment of calm. She had faced the crucible of deployment, earned the respect of the SEALs, and proven that the smallest recruit could have the greatest impact. Her journey was far from over, but this first mission had confirmed a truth she had always known. Skill, precision, and unwavering focus outweighed size, strength, or doubt. The morning had begun like any other on deployment calm, deceptively so. The sun had barely crested the horizon, casting long shadows over the dusty, rugged terrain. The team moved with practiced precision, silent and deliberate, each step calculated to avoid detection. She carried her sniper rifle, as she always did, light but loaded with deadly potential, eyes scanning every inch of the surrounding landscape. Her senses were alert, attuned to movement, sound, and the faintest anomaly in the terrain. Experience had taught her that danger often lurked where it was least expected. The team had been tasked with a routine reconnaissance mission near a hostile village. Intelligence suggested minimal resistance, enough to observe, mark targets, and report back. Confidence was high. The SEALs, seasoned and silent, moved in formation. She stayed in the rear, her scope raised, monitoring the horizon for threats. Every detail was logged in her mind. Trees, rock formations, dirt paths, even the way dust swirled in the light breeze. She was ready for anything, though none of them suspected how quickly readiness would be tested. The first warning was subtle, a rustle in the distance, a shadow moving unnaturally through the trees. Others may have dismissed it, attributing it to wildlife, but her instincts flared. She focused through her scope, tracking the movement with meticulous care. Then came the unmistakable sound, a rifle shot, distant but precise, aimed at the team. The calm of the morning shattered instantly. The SEALs reacted immediately, dropping to cover and returning fire. It became clear they had walked into an ambush. Enemy fighters, concealed and prepared, had surrounded them on multiple sides. The terrain that had seemed benign now became a labyrinth of threats. Bullets ricocheted off rocks and dirt. Explosions sent clouds of dust and debris into the air, and chaos erupted. For most, the instinct would have been panic. But she remained calm. Training had taught her to see the battlefield like a chessboard, each enemy a piece whose movement could be anticipated and neutralized. She quickly identified the most immediate threats. 2 enemy combatants had advanced to a position that would have flanked the SEALs in seconds. Without hesitation, she took careful aim, adjusting for wind, distance, and the movement of her targets. Her first shot dropped one combatant instantly. The second followed a heartbeat later. The SEALs, pinned down and under fire, looked toward her position and realized that the sniper they had once doubted was now their lifeline. The firefight escalated. The ambushers were well trained, coordinating attacks with precision that rivaled the SEALs themselves. Yet every movement they made was anticipated. She observed, calculated, and executed with perfect timing. Shots rang out from her rifle, each one deliberate and decisive. The team began to adjust, moving strategically under her cover, each maneuver guided by her instructions over the radio. Her calm, measured voice cut through the chaos, directing them to cover, warning of danger, and identifying weaknesses in enemy positions. Hours seemed to stretch like days. The sun climbed higher, casting harsh light and shadows over the battlefield. Bullets tore through the air, smoke and dust reduced visibility, and every step carried the risk of death. Yet she moved with precision, repositioning silently, exploiting cover, and maintaining an unobstructed line of sight on critical targets. Her small stature and stealth allowed her to move where others could not, finding angles that were otherwise impossible and creating opportunities for the team to survive. At one critical moment, an enemy fighter nearly breached their left flank. She spotted him just in time, calculating the trajectory for a shot that would neutralize the threat without endangering her teammates. Her bullet struck true, and the SEALs, recognizing the precision, were able to counterattack and regain the upper hand. Each time the enemy adjusted or advanced, she was already 3 steps ahead, her mind predicting movements, her hands executing flawlessly. The SEALs' respect for her grew with every passing minute. The same soldiers who had doubted her size and capability now relied on her judgment entirely. She had become the calm center of the storm, the silent guardian whose bullets and guidance determined life or death. She communicated through whispers over the radio, guiding the team, coordinating attacks, and warning of unseen dangers. Every action was deliberate, every decision calculated, every shot potentially the difference between survival and disaster. Fatigue began to gnaw at her muscles, but she ignored it. Every second mattered, and any lapse could cost lives. Her breathing remained steady, her focus unbroken. The ambush tested not just skill, but endurance, patience, and nerve. She was no longer a recruit proving herself. She was a sniper whose discipline, precision, and mental fortitude were dictating the course of the engagement. By midday, the team had begun to stabilize. Enemy forces had been suppressed, casualties minimized, and positions secured. Her shots continued to neutralize critical threats, allowing the SEALs to regroup and counterattack effectively. The ambush that could have ended in disaster was slowly turning in their favor, thanks to her unwavering focus and deadly accuracy. She had become indispensable, her presence the keystone of survival. When the dust finally settled, silence fell over the battlefield. The SEALs had survived, largely because of her intervention. They moved through the area, tending to minor injuries, securing equipment, and assessing the aftermath. The same soldiers who had once questioned her presence now looked to her with a mixture of awe and gratitude. She had proven that size, age, or prior assumptions mattered little in the face of skill, precision, and mental discipline. In the debriefing later that day, the commanding officer emphasized her contributions. Her calculations, anticipation of enemy movements, and flawless marksmanship had directly saved lives. While others had fought bravely, it was her calm, methodical execution that had tipped the scales. She accepted the praise quietly, knowing that actions spoke louder than words. She had not come to be recognized. She had come to protect her team and complete the mission. That evening, as she cleaned her rifle and prepared for the next day, she reflected on the ambush. It had been the most intense test of her life, far beyond any simulation or training exercise. But she had faced it with the discipline, focus, and courage that had carried her through every challenge before. Her mind replayed every shot, every calculation, every move, noting what had gone well and where she could improve. Even in success, she sought perfection, knowing that the next mission might demand it. For the SEALs, the ambush was a lesson in humility and respect. They had underestimated her once, assuming that size or appearance defined capability. Now, they had witnessed firsthand that her calm focus and skill were unmatched. She had saved them from what could have been a catastrophic defeat. And while they did not say it outright, the bond of trust had been sealed. She was no longer the small recruit. She was a sniper whose precision and courage could alter the outcome of any engagement. As darkness fell over the battlefield, she allowed herself a rare moment of quiet reflection. She thought of the ambush, the rapid decision-making, and the lives she had influenced through discipline and skill. The chaos of the day had tested her like nothing else before. And yet, she had emerged not only unbroken, but stronger, more confident, and more certain of her purpose. She had become the soldier she had always trained to be, a sniper whose calm, deliberate actions were now inseparable from survival itself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and the battlefield would always test limits. But she had proven that she could face the storm, that precision, patience, and unwavering focus could overcome chaos and danger. The ambush had become her proving ground, and she had emerged victorious. For the first time in the SEAL's experience with her, doubt had been replaced entirely by respect, trust, and acknowledgement of her unique and invaluable skill. The aftermath of the ambush had left the team battered but alive, a thin thread of chaos now replaced with tense order. The enemy had been suppressed, but the area remained hostile. Every step forward demanded focus. Every decision carried the weight of life and death. She knew that the success of the mission and the survival of the SEALs depended on her ability to maintain calm under the most extreme pressure. Precision was no longer optional. It was the difference between life and death. She climbed to an elevated ridge, the wind whipping across her face, her rifle cradled carefully. The terrain stretched below her, jagged rocks, sparse trees, and the winding dirt road that the enemy might use to regroup. Every movement had to be calculated. One misjudged shot could reveal her position or endanger her teammates. Yet she was not afraid. Her training had prepared her for this. Hours of endurance, camouflage, and tactical exercises had honed her mind into a weapon as precise as her rifle. The enemy had regrouped, attempting to counterattack from concealed positions. Bullets cut through the air, ricocheting against rocks and dirt as the SEALs advanced cautiously. She scanned methodically, identifying threats and weaknesses in the enemy's formation. Her eyes, trained to detect the slightest movement, caught a glint of metal rifle barrel peeking from behind a boulder. Without hesitation, she calculated distance, wind drift, and elevation. The shot was deliberate and perfect, the enemy neutralized before they could fire. Her teammates were one step safer, thanks to her calm precision. The firefight intensified. Enemy fighters attempted to flank the SEALs from multiple directions, using terrain to their advantage. Chaos threatened to overwhelm the team, but she remained the calm center. Every breath was measured, every adjustment precise. She relayed information over the radio, guiding teammates to cover and alerting them to incoming threats. Her voice, steady and unflinching, was a lifeline. The SEALs, trained to rely on their instincts, now relied on her analysis and judgment, moving with confidence under her guidance. She repositioned silently, moving along the ridge with careful, deliberate steps. Her small frame allowed her to remain concealed in narrow crevices that larger soldiers could not exploit. From this vantage point, she had a clear line of sight on the enemy's advance. She could see patterns in their movement, predict their next actions, and preemptively neutralize threats. Each shot she fired was calculated, deliberate, and effective. One by one, enemy combatants fell, never realizing how deadly the unseen sniper had become. The SEALs moved forward cautiously, clearing areas that had previously been too dangerous. They trusted her judgment implicitly, following her instructions without hesitation. When an enemy combatant attempted to climb a ridge to ambush from above, she was already tracking him through her scope. She adjusted for wind, held her breath, and fired. The shot landed perfectly, and the ambush was thwarted. The SEALs, witnessing her skill firsthand, began to view her not as the small recruit they had doubted, but as a guardian angel whose precision under fire dictated the battle's outcome. Hours passed in a blur of calculated shots, tactical movements, and relentless vigilance. The battlefield was unforgiving. Explosions, gunfire, and the cries of both friend and foe filled the air. Yet she remained calm, focusing on her objectives, adjusting positions, and coordinating the team's movements. Fatigue threatened to dull her senses, but discipline and mental conditioning held her steady. She had trained for this intensity, and now it paid off. Precision under fire was no longer a concept, it was her reality. At one critical moment, the SEALs were pinned down by an enemy sniper who had taken an unexpected position on higher ground. The team's communication faltered under pressure. She assessed the situation quickly. Using her scope, she identified the sniper's location, calculated the distance, adjusted for wind and angle, and fired. The enemy sniper was neutralized instantly. Her teammates, previously trapped, were now able to move freely. The difference between danger and survival had been her precise, disciplined action. Once again, her skills under pressure had changed the course of the battle. The SEALs began a coordinated advance, relying on her to provide cover and suppress enemy movements. She moved from position to position, always unseen, always calculating, always precise. Each shot she took was the result of mental discipline and tactical foresight. Enemy combatants quickly learned to fear the invisible sniper, whose calm precision made every movement deadly. Her reputation in real-time battlefield conditions grew, though she remained quiet, focused, and unassuming. She did not seek recognition. Survival and mission success were her only goals. By late afternoon, the team had gained control of key positions, forcing the enemy to retreat. The SEALs moved with a newfound confidence, trusting her precision under fire. They had learned that she could calculate risk faster than most, act faster than many, and remain unflinching when danger seemed insurmountable. Each life she protected through her skill reinforced their trust. Instructors' whispers from training, once filled with doubt, now echoed in her favor. She had truly mastered the art of precision under fire. Despite her success, she remained vigilant. The battlefield was never forgiving, and one careless move could reverse everything. She adjusted positions, continued to monitor enemy movement, and ensured that the SEALs could operate safely. Her small size, once underestimated, allowed her to navigate tight spaces, maintain concealment, and reposition silently when necessary. The combination of mental discipline, tactical skill, and physical stealth made her nearly untouchable, a living testament to the training and preparation that had brought her here. When night fell, the team gathered to assess the day's operation. The enemy had been suppressed, casualties minimized, and objectives achieved. The SEALs, exhausted but alive, looked toward her with respect that needed no words. She had been the difference between survival and disaster. Each shot, each decision, each moment of unwavering focus had saved lives. The ambush and ensuing firefight had proven more than her skill. It had proven her resilience, discipline, and leadership under the most extreme conditions. She cleaned her rifle quietly, reflecting on the intensity of the day. Every shot had been a choice, every movement a calculation. She had survived the chaos of battle without hesitation, remaining precise under fire when others would have faltered. Her mind replayed every scenario, analyzing outcomes, adjusting strategies, and preparing for what might come next. Her role had shifted from student to indispensable team member. She was no longer merely surviving, she was actively shaping the battlefield. As the team rested, she allowed herself a brief moment of reflection. The day had tested her more than any simulation or training exercise could. Yet, she had remained calm, focused, and deadly precise. Her skill under fire had earned not just survival, but the trust and admiration of the SEALs. Doubt, which had followed her since the beginning, had been silenced by action and accuracy. She understood, now more than ever, that preparation, mental discipline, and precision were what defined a sniper, not size, strength, or appearance. In the quiet of the night, she looked out over the terrain she had helped secure. Her rifle rested beside her, her eyes scanning the horizon even in calm. Every movement, every breath, and every shot had been calculated, and every action had saved lives. She had proven herself under fire in a way that no drill or training exercise could simulate. Her journey had only begun, but in this moment, she had mastered the battlefield and herself. The SEALs, once skeptical of her abilities, now relied on her without question. Her calm precision under fire had changed their perception entirely. She was no longer too small, no longer an unlikely recruit. She was a sniper, a protector, and a force of discipline and focus that could alter the course of any engagement. Precision under fire had become her defining trait, and she had earned a place among the best in the most unforgiving conditions imaginable. The battles had tested her body, mind, and spirit, but the final frontier was proving herself to the team. The SEALs, veterans hardened by years of combat, had watched her in action. They had seen her remain calm under fire, take precise shots that saved lives, and make split-second decisions that turned chaos into order. Yet respect in a unit like this was not freely given. It had to be earned, and even her previous feats were met with cautious admiration rather than full acceptance. The morning began with routine patrols, the quiet lull of movement under a bright sun, giving them little hint of what was to come. She led the observation from an elevated position, scanning for signs of enemy activity. The SEALs moved tactically through narrow valleys and rocky outcroppings, trusting her guidance to avoid ambushes. Every footstep, every shadow, every whisper of movement could be a threat. Her role had evolved from sniper to strategist, using her observations to influence the team's decisions in real time. It was during this patrol that the test came not from enemy fire, but from an unexpected emergency. One of the SEALs, a veteran who had initially doubted her capabilities, slipped on the rocks and injured his leg badly. The team's progress was suddenly threatened. With communications limited and enemy presence possible, hesitation could mean catastrophe. In an instant, she assessed the situation, evaluating cover positions, potential threats, and extraction options. Her calm voice over the radio directed the team. Cover him, secure perimeter, and hold until extraction. The injured SEAL's teammate looked at her, eyes wide with surprise and newfound trust. She moved silently, setting up an overwatch position to protect the team while they stabilized the injured soldier. Her rifle scanned the terrain for threats, while her mind plotted every possible contingency. She coordinated with other snipers, ensured angles were covered, and provided actionable intelligence that allowed the team to maneuver safely. Every action demonstrated not just skill, but leadership, a quality that few could claim, regardless of rank or experience. As they moved to a safer location, another threat emerged. Enemy combatants had spotted the team and were closing in from multiple directions. The SEALs braced, weapons ready, but the situation was tense. She quickly assessed angles of fire, predicting enemy movement, and relayed instructions with precision. One by one, the team neutralized the advancing threat under her guidance. Her coordination had turned a potentially deadly situation into a controlled engagement. She had transformed from a lone sniper into the strategic anchor of the team. The SEALs, observing her performance, began to speak differently. Where skepticism had lingered, respect began to solidify into trust. The small recruit who had once been dismissed had proven herself time and again, not just with her aim, but with her ability to think, adapt, and act decisively. Each life saved, each mission outcome influenced by her actions, reinforced the truth. She was not an addition to the team. She was essential. Over the next several days, missions grew more complex. She coordinated with the SEALs in reconnaissance, target identification, and strategic positioning. Her insights into terrain, enemy behavior, and tactical planning proved invaluable. Even seasoned veterans began to rely on her judgment implicitly, deferring to her recommendations on sniper positions, cover points, and movement strategy. Her small stature, once perceived as a limitation, allowed her to maneuver in ways others could not, providing perspectives that were otherwise impossible. It was during a night operation that her leadership fully crystallized. The SEALs had to secure a heavily guarded compound without raising alarm. The plan relied on stealth, precision, and timing. She positioned herself at a high vantage point, coordinating the team's movement through radios while remaining concealed. Every instruction she gave was measured and precise, accounting for variables that others might overlook. Her calculations for wind, light, and enemy patterns ensured that each movement was deliberate and silent. The mission unfolded perfectly. Enemy guards were neutralized quietly, objectives secured, and the SEALs moved without detection. Every success was a testament to her guidance, observation, and skill under pressure. By the time the team regrouped, exhausted but victorious, their perception of her had transformed completely. She was no longer the small recruit or the underestimated sniper. She was a leader, a strategist, and a protector whose judgment and precision had guided them to success. In the aftermath, the SEALs gathered around. The veteran who had injured himself earlier approached, placing a hand on her shoulder with genuine respect. "I doubted you at first," he admitted quietly, "but you've proven more than any of us could have imagined. You saved lives today, more than anyone else on the team." Her response was simple, a nod and a quiet acknowledgement. Recognition was not what drove her. Mission success and the safety of her teammates were her rewards. Yet, for the first time, she felt the full weight of their respect. The commanding officer later commended her formally during a debriefing. Every action, every calculation, and every precise shot had been critical to the success of the operation. She had earned her place, not through size, not through words, but through relentless discipline, mental fortitude, and mastery of skill. Her peers, once skeptical, now regarded her as equal, capable, and essential to any mission. She had transcended expectations entirely, becoming an integral part of the SEALs' elite operations. Even in downtime, the shift in perception was clear. Team members sought her advice, observed her methods, and included her in tactical discussions. Her input was valued, her decisions trusted, and her judgment respected. Where once she had been ignored or underestimated, she now held influence. Leadership was not about rank. It was about respect earned through action, and she had earned it decisively. In the quiet moments between missions, she reflected on how far she had come. From the first days of training, when whispers of doubt followed her, to the battlefield where split-second decisions determined life or death, she had transformed herself entirely. Her size, once seen as a limitation, had become irrelevant. Skill, precision, patience, and mental discipline were what mattered, and she possessed them in abundance. Her bond with the SEALs deepened. Trust, forged under fire and reinforced by repeated success, became unshakable. The team now viewed her as a cornerstone, someone whose precision, focus, and judgment could determine the outcome of any operation. The camaraderie and mutual respect were unlike anything she had experienced before. She was no longer an outsider proving herself. She was an integral part of the most elite unit in the world. By the end of the week, she had fully earned the respect she had been striving for. Her role had expanded beyond sniper. She was a strategist, an advisor, and a guide. Her actions had saved lives, her insight had influenced missions, and her presence had altered the team's perception of what was possible. Where once she had been underestimated, she now stood as an example of what skill, discipline, and determination could achieve. As the sun set over the rugged terrain, she sat quietly, rifle resting nearby. She thought of every moment, every challenge, every shot that had brought her here. Respect was no longer whispered in doubt or questioned in skepticism. It was visible in the eyes of the SEALs, in their trust, and in their reliance on her guidance. She had earned it through action, through mastery, and through unwavering focus under pressure. In the world of elite operations, respect was earned only by those who could survive and excel where others failed. She had done both, repeatedly, with precision and composure that few could match. Her journey from overlooked recruit to respected sniper and strategist was complete, yet she knew the path ahead would demand even more. She had proven herself in training, in deployment, and under fire. Now, she had the trust and respect of the team that would follow her anywhere. The final mission loomed like a storm on the horizon. Intelligence had confirmed that a high-value enemy leader was hiding in a fortified compound deep within hostile territory. This operation was unlike anything the SEALs had faced before, dangerous, unpredictable, and critical. Success would disrupt enemy operations for months. Failure could cost lives and compromise the entire region. For her, it was more than just another mission. It was the culmination of everything she had trained for, every skill she had honed, every ounce of mental and physical endurance she had built. The briefing was tense and precise. Satellite imagery, terrain analysis, and movement patterns were displayed. The SEALs listened intently, their focus absolute. She studied the maps, already visualizing vantage points, lines of sight, and potential threats. Her role was sniper coverage, but she also had to coordinate with the team, provide reconnaissance, and make real-time strategic decisions. There was no room for error. Every detail mattered. Every decision could be life or death. Night fell, and the team moved under cover of darkness, silent shadows against the rugged terrain. She adjusted her gear meticulously, checking her rifle, ammunition, and communications. The wind was a factor, the uneven ground a challenge, but she had trained for these conditions, and she thrived in them. Her heartbeat was steady, her mind focused. Every breath, every movement, every calculation was deliberate. She was calm, precise, and ready. The compound came into view. Guard towers, motion sensors, and patrolling sentries were visible even in the low moonlight. She observed from a concealed ridge, her scope trained on key points. One misstep, one misjudged angle, and the team could be exposed. She relayed instructions quietly, guiding the SEALs through a safe approach while marking enemy positions for precision strikes. Her eyes scanned continuously, tracking every movement, predicting every action, and preparing for contingencies. A first engagement erupted suddenly. A patrol spotted the team, and gunfire shattered the night silence. The SEALs moved immediately into defensive positions, returning fire and maneuvering tactically. She remained in her overwatch position, calculating every shot with meticulous care. Bullets zipped through the air, ricocheting off rocks and metal, but she was calm. Each movement of the enemy was anticipated. Each shot she fired was deliberate. Her presence was the anchor that allowed the SEALs to respond with precision rather than panic. A critical moment arose when the enemy leader attempted to escape via a secondary exit. Her eyes tracked his movement through the scope. The distance was extreme, the angle difficult, the wind unpredictable, but she had trained for this. She adjusted carefully, accounting for every variable, and fired. The shot hit its mark, incapacitating the target and preventing escape. The SEALs, who had relied on her guidance throughout, now understood that her precision under pressure had ensured the success of the mission. The firefight intensified as reinforcements arrived. Enemy combatants attempted to flank the SEALs from multiple directions, using the compound's walls, rubble, and natural cover. She remained calm, repositioning silently, always concealed, always calculating. Every shot she took was the result of experience, discipline, and mental focus. The SEALs advanced under her cover, neutralizing threats and securing positions that might have been impossible without her overwatch. Hours passed like minutes. Her mind worked tirelessly, scanning for threats, calculating trajectories, and coordinating movements. The team depended on her not only for marksmanship, but for tactical judgment. She predicted enemy patterns, guided the SEALs through tight corridors, and prevented potentially fatal mistakes. Each action reinforced her status, not as a recruit or a small sniper, but as a cornerstone of the team's effectiveness. Trust, once cautious, had become absolute. At one point, an enemy combatant attempted to disable their communications equipment, a move that could have isolated the SEALs and changed the course of the mission. She noticed instantly, calculating his trajectory and predicting his escape route. With a single precise shot, she neutralized the threat, preserving the team's ability to communicate and coordinate. Her calm under fire had become almost surgical, each action deliberate, efficient, and vital to mission success. The SEALs moved through the compound systematically, clearing rooms, securing intelligence, and eliminating remaining threats. She provided constant guidance, identifying hidden dangers, marking enemy positions, and ensuring the team's advance was smooth and calculated. Her ability to maintain situational awareness under extreme stress had proven invaluable. She had become not just a sniper, but the strategic linchpin of the operation, the silent force enabling the SEAL's success. When the compound was finally secured, silence fell like a heavy blanket. The SEALs, exhausted but victorious, regrouped. Casualties were minimal. Objectives had been achieved, and the high-value target had been neutralized. The team looked at her with respect and gratitude that needed no words. The same soldiers who had once doubted her now relied on her judgment and skill completely. She had earned their trust through action, precision, and unwavering discipline under the most extreme conditions imaginable. In the aftermath, the commanding officer debriefed the team, emphasizing her critical role. Every action she took, from precise shots to tactical coordination, had been instrumental in mission success. She had not only saved lives, but had ensured that objectives were completed efficiently and safely. Her small stature, once seen as a potential limitation, had proven irrelevant. Skill, focus, and mental discipline were the true measures of capability. As the team rested, she reflected on her journey. From the first days of training, through grueling exercises, deployment, ambushes, and battlefield engagements, she had proven herself repeatedly. She had transformed from the recruit doubted by instructors and peers into a sniper and strategist whose skill, focus, and calm under pressure had become indispensable. Every challenge she faced had reinforced her discipline and mental fortitude, culminating in this final test. Her bond with the SEALs had never been stronger. Trust forged in fire and refined through repeated success now defined their relationship. They had witnessed her calm under fire, her strategic insight, and her precise execution of each task. She had earned not just respect, but full acceptance as a peer, a leader, and a guardian whose presence on the battlefield was essential. In the quiet of night, overlooking the secured compound, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. Every calculation, every precise shot, every decision under pressure had led to this moment. She had faced doubt, skepticism, and extreme danger, and had emerged not only unbroken but triumphant. Her journey was complete not because it had ended, but because she had proven to herself and others that size, appearance, or expectations could never define true capability. She knew that future missions would bring new challenges, new dangers, and new tests. Yet she felt ready. She had trained relentlessly, fought decisively, and led with precision. Her skill set had been tested to the limits, and she had proven herself beyond doubt. The SEALs now relied on her instinct, judgment, and calm under pressure, as much as they relied on experience and firepower. She had become not only a soldier, but a force that could tip the balance in life or death situations. As dawn broke over the horizon, the first rays of light illuminating the terrain, she packed her gear, ready to move with the SEALs to the next mission. She had survived, excelled, and earned the trust of the most elite soldiers in the world. The journey that began with doubt and underestimation had transformed her into a sniper whose precision, discipline, and unwavering focus could change the course of battle. In that moment, she understood the truth she had always known. Skill and determination outweighed size, strength, or expectation. She had become the soldier she had trained to be a sniper, strategist, and guardian. The final test was not just the mission itself, but the culmination of every challenge she had overcome. And she had passed it with unmatched precision and courage, earning a place among the elite and proving that no obstacle was too great for her resolve.